First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today, faculty and staff, residents and students, and certainly all of you tuning in from branch campuses. We're pleased to be able to do this today. My name is Corey Smith. I'm the president of the medical student class of 2016, and I have the honor to introduce our president today, Dr. Vickers. He is the James C. Lee Endowed Chair and Senior Vice President for Medicine and Dean of the UAB School of Medicine, and today is his first State of the School address. The first time I met Dr. Vickers was shortly after he took his position association meeting, and I doubt he even remembers this, peppered with some questions that were a little tougher than race, and the humility as well as in his passion and vision for the school that Dr. Vickers showed, and he's continued that throughout his tenure as president. And I know as medical students, we're delighted to have a leader with a strong vision for the school and the community around us. So without further ado, our president, Dr. Vickers.
So you got a chance to hear Corey introduce me. So thank you all for coming. So I've looked forward to this for some time and been anxious to get a chance to talk with you and then share what's gone on with the school. There's been a lot that's taken place, and I look forward to us going through it. Kendra, is this advanced? So before we start, I think in any organization, we really do want to recognize our heroes. And in this case, we want to recognize those who are no longer with us. Jim Pittman was a leader, longest standing dean in our institution, but there are faculty members who you all will have some relationship with and know. But I think on an annual basis, we'll take time to recognize those individuals, and we'll certainly take input if we've missed them. But most of all, I want us to take a moment of silence to recognize our colleagues who are no longer with us. Thank you very much for doing that. So, this is the president, so you're not confused. Corey, you were fine. I'm going to use it just to tease you. I certainly, one of the reasons I took this job was the pleasure of working with Ray, and most of you here had the pleasure of working with Ray as dean. So I was very thankful when given the opportunity to serve in this role, but also to work with him. And I want to recognize that what accomplishments we've started, or what we've had, is built on the leadership that he provided, not only as president before I got here, but as dean of the School of Medicine, and that time period that Anupa Agarwal served as interim dean. So we stand on the shoulders of giants in many ways, and I certainly stand on the work that Ray has done before I came. The other thing that's been an attraction for me and has been a pleasure is working with Will and Jim. They've been partners, and it's been my desire to make them vested and completely attuned to all the things that go on in the School of Medicine. That, I think, camaraderie for my interest and involvement in the health services foundation, as well as in the health system in the hospital. But I'm appreciative of their partnership. No institution, no matter how good it is, will function or thrive if leaders can't work together. And you can look at the best institutions in the country, and they've failed when the leaders can't work together. So our future success is very much tied to us being able to work in a very strong collaborative way. And I'm appreciative to their leadership and their support throughout my year that's been here. And it's been an enjoyable part of the job. So what I'm going to today, in this order, I'm going to talk about leadership and recruitment, education, research, our clinical programs, and where we're going with this thing of AMC 21 Reload. Hopefully all of these things will cut across some area where you work in and some aspect of where you contribute to UAB, School of Medicine. So if you take a snapshot, and I'll show this slide at the very end of the talk, this is a little bit of who we are. The School of Medicine, UAB Medicine, if you would, a number of medical students, 1,000 residents, over 1,000 people at any given one time in our hospital, nearly 2,000 appointments at the Kirkland Clinic, over 4,000 research studies going on, and well over a million, nearly 2 million square feet of space. And as a faculty, we're one of the largest faculty groups in the country. Really well over 1,300 full-time faculty, and we've added 111. As it goes to recruitment, that's an ongoing process for us, and we couldn't be prouder this year, and I'm going to highlight it. Key leaders we have brought to UAB. Mitch Cloyne has spent most of his entire academic career, besides being at Hopkins and training in upstate New York, at Children's Hospital of Cincinnati. And as you know, it's one of the best hospitals in the nation in this country for complex children's care. We knew from the first set of interviews that Mitch was the candidate we wanted to have come to UAB. And we were extremely excited that Mitch accepted the job and has really done an outstanding job moving into and really a tremendous longtime chair, Sergio Stanyu. Ravi and Smita, we were also excited to recruit them from California. Ravi now heads our division of HEMONC. Seth and Mitch led the recruitment of them in a very stellar way. And I know Seth is excited as I am to see Ravi in the HEMONC division. Ravi's also going to be a great asset for Ed Partridge. He's going to be Deputy Director of the Cancer Center and is an outstanding and internationally recognized leader in leukemia. Like in most, the better half is truly better half in several ways. Smita is an outstanding researcher in her own. Soon in the recruitment process, when we really thought Ravi was the jewel, we realized Smita was the jewel when we were recruiting them both. And Smita is the leader of our outcome center Cancer Outcome Center within the school, and will be a vice chair within the Department of Pediatrics. She brings a great wealth of experience and funding, as well as Ravi to lead our programs in oncology and survivorship. And the final major recruitment is Jim Cimino. You've heard me speak routinely about the need to grow informatics. Jim is one of the seminal informatic leaders in the country, one of 2 or 3 that would be recognizable if you mention his name. Just got inducted to the IOM. He has been at the NIH for 6 or 7 years. He helped develop the program at Columbia. Jim is coming to UAB. Effort that Bob Kimberly put in order to get Jim here. But people are asking the questions. We had to say, people will ask, why did Jim come to UAB? He could have gone a lot of places that wanted him to come. Question's a good one to ask, and hopefully you can answer it at the end of this talk. But he will start on March the 6th. We then, and I have this in the leadership and recruitment slide, early on in my tenure, I asked the AAMC to come and ask the question, what things can help us grow? What are the things we might do? And I said, do an evaluation of our dean's office first. And they early on took a study from schools in our southeast. Our dean's office was 20 FTE smaller than any, not capable. And so one of the things I asked is that we have to put ourselves in a position to serve a role as we should, versus the places where papers just pass through and we sign them. And so to start that process, I reached out to put a team to help us. And much of what you see today would not have occurred without the individuals in place to make that happen. So the first thing I recognized that a person who did a phenomenal job and a great citizen of our community was Anupam Agarwal. I needed somebody in this role who certainly people respected and had the respect of the leaders around him. And so Anupam has done a really phenomenal job as the executive vice dean. Along with that, he's got his P30 refunded, one of the few Bryan centers in the country. But he's with our research leaders, the Pittman Scholar program you'll hear about it. He's provided a comprehensive program with our research team to look at P and U grants. I've had the experience to go through that review for our SPOR with Don Bucksbaum. He's led the evaluation of our transplant program, particularly lung transplant, and he's been of many of our major recruitments and retention efforts, and he acts as a sort of a QI for quality improvement and liaison for our office and our chairs and center directors and leaders. Don Buccarella, hired by Ray, has been a seminal and key person for the finances of the school. And Don now serves not only as Senior Associate Dean, but she also serves as the CFO for UAB Medicine. She has a unique purview to oversee finances for both the health system and the school. We have moved to take a special insurance policy out on Dawn, just in case, to make sure nothing happens to her, because we depend on her financial acumen so much. But she's added also Lakeisha Mack to a part of her team, who will be a key part of that as well. Hughes Evans has served as a Senior Associate Dean and has a busy year with her team. And that list of things, she would first tell you, that's not Hughes alone. That's her team that's helped bring about a number of these things that's taken place. That includes, you'll hear more about our accreditation profile, about our clear visit. But all of these things have occurred under the rubric of her Department of Medicine, and she's done a phenomenal job. We've added some new people. Now, David Rogers hadn't been here that long. He was added in a short order, but David has made his presence fully aware by taking up a number of things that were beyond the scope of his job. David's title now is Senior Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs and Professional Development. He's really been our leadership development coach and leader. He's Leadership Development Academy. He's done an overview of the overall leadership program that we'll hopefully expand on. He's done a great job of looking at our external review policies as well as our external engagement with industry. And he's also been actively engaged in developing a formal mentor program. I was at it. When I got here, I realized one of the things we needed was certainly as a result of our task force David and Hughes had put together, we clearly needed a dean for diversity. And the term diversity for me doesn't ring the equity as the first thing in mind. What comes to mind to me is excellence. And so I needed somebody who had demonstrated, has done one of the world's best recognized outcomes and disparity researchers, but also someone who's demonstrated a passion for diversity and recruitment, hopefully served in this role and was a critical part in our LCME process. And you see a list of the things that she's done, particularly most recently having Mark McVeigh visit our campus as the Chief Diversity Officer for the AAMC. And then the seminal leaders for our research program. Bob had a great deal on his plate. Most recently, he of the CCTS, which has gone in, I think, maybe in its best condition ever. Bob has also been integral in much of our research. It has been seminal in the recruitment of Jim Cimino, and will be seminal as he put together this network for our CCTS throughout the Southeast and driving clinical translational research. However, we realized that we were expanding our research profile. And as AMC 21 was to roll out around these areas that you see us talk about, we needed another credible leader. Leader first, scientists as well, who could drive the programs that will hopefully drive the future of our research endeavors. And we couldn't have asked for a better person in Tika Benveniste. Tika is now starting as the interim senior associate dean. She's already jumped in and done a number who will recognize her presence as she gets involved with graduate education issues. She's been part of designing and sending out the RFA now for multi-investigator programs. You'll see the other RFAs soon come down the line. And she and the new and our team have also put together a new incentive program for our team as well. So this group, I am extremely excited about. They, along with the next group, you will understand will be the key drivers of our future of our academic environment. Our regional campus deans have also been great contributors. I will speak in more detail about them as we go through the campus, but Bob Centaur has been a long-standing leader here at UAB, campus at Huntsville, and admirably. Wick Manny is excited to just start our new campus in Montgomery, you'll hear about. And Rick Steifer is an outstanding academic leader at the Tuscaloosa campus that I'll share more about as we go down the line. These are the other fundamental core leaders of UAB. The department chairs are outstanding academic physicians. The best job at UAB is being a department chair. They have a lot of responsibility, are really tremendous and recognized nationally and internationally. What we do is really built around making sure our departments can excel and achieve their vision. They also provide great research infrastructure, great clinical care, and great training. And this group is a big part of our success and will be the key to our success in the future. So we're proud of them. They're outstanding. It's the pleasure that I have to serve with them, but you couldn't find a better group in the country. So change occurs, and two seminal individuals in UAB's culture. Sergio Staño, Mr. Pediatrics, if you would, has served in that role for 25 years. He's also been president of the HSF, who received the President's Medal last year, but he has been synonymous with leadership in pediatrics on this campus. In 25 years, we've been proud to work with him and have him lead and keep that relationship with children strong. Kirby Bland really has been a senior mentor figure in my academic career. My first launch to really become an academic under Kirby's leadership. Gil hired me and gave me a great opportunity. Kirby also took that to another level, so I have great admiration for Kirby. But Kirby has done that for this Department of Surgery and is arguably one of the most decorated academic surgeons in UAB's history. And in years, it's hard to say that Kirby's stepping down, but he's allowing somebody to lead. So I would ask that we give these two leaders a hand of applause for what they've contributed to UAB. So our recruitment goals for the next year are around these major areas. We have a number of things going on in global health. Ruben Pillai, our assistant dean in this area, has led a charge. We've had Glenda Gray from the MRC here. As you heard with Kirby, we'll have already opened the search for a new Department of Surgery chair. We'll also be recruiting a chair for biomedical engineering, this new combined department that Ray and Anupam have established with the School of Engineering. We've opened that up. We'll also be looking for a director. Nita Lemde is doing an outstanding job as the interim director, and I'm sure we'll be applying. But just received a gift that you hear about to name our Personalized Medicine Institute, and we want to continue to increase and continue our trajectory for funded investigators to 8 to 10 in the upcoming year. So medical education, that's a key part of who we are. And this is a core group. Now, I haven't included everybody, but I've included the part of the group that certainly had a part in this process of our accreditation. And there's a huge team that actually guides our medical education program. And I think any great, we were getting this process, this for us to have any chance of succeeding in our future. Similar to this success, Bob Rich played a huge role, and we're building that he established. But in this role, the reviewers who came in said that the database that Bob and his team had put together was one of the best they'd ever seen. With Hughes's leadership, Bob's work to drive this, Craig and Laura, and in the country. At the same time, we had our review Louisville and Baylor. So we're the fact that we had a great visit, and it allowed us to move forward without any hiccups regarding this. They recognized we had a diverse scope of medical alternatives for our students for electives. We had financial stability moving forward. Most of all, they saw really unified leadership. When Jim and I and Will met with them, they understood that the entire institution was behind the school. It was not just the dean, but it was every aspect of that. And that's my same feeling about anything that Will and Jim are trying to do in making sure our clinical enterprise is successful. We had 2 citations. Now, you might think we'd like to have none, but in 2006 we had 8. I remember Bob when he was starting at DEN to get us going, but with 8 we got fully approved and we did fine. With 2, we're in pretty much rare air. There are various schools with 2 citations. And so with that, we have a chance to improve our self-directed learning. We have some observations of increasing clinical skills activities, all things that we can achieve and move ourselves forward to a process that allows us to train the best students in the country. Our admissions process has taken on a bit of a new take you'll hear me talk about, but with that LCME accreditation, you can imagine we're a quite attractive school. We have nearly 4,000 applications. Just over 10% of those will get interviews, and then we'll move to admit a class that's somewhere around 186. Nathan has led this for some time. I think we've made some substantial improvements. Ray and Anupam had, with Nathan and Hughes and the team, had put in this new process called the multi-minute mini interview. And as you know, the challenge of interviewing for medical school, there's a lot of subjectivity of who's going to be a good doctor. We have an outstanding program of creating a holistic approach, and that is we set a floor. These are the bare minimums, these are the minimums you need to be. And once we identify, move ourselves about to determine what are the characteristics that really make an outstanding physician. And sometimes that's hard to put objective criteria on. The multiple mini interview allows us to have on that. It's been around in Canada for several years, but all of the schools that you can imagine you would think about as peers, Hopkins, Harvard, Stanford, all have the same process. And it already seems to be paying some dividends, allow us to have the idea of who are going to be good students. So we've started that, and we're moving that in the process of helping us decide who gets admitted to our medical school. We've also added this concept of learning communities. They're largely to make sure we have longitudinal mentoring for students. Probably one of the most stressful times and transitions in life is from that year of undergrad where you're a big woman or big man on campus in your senior year to your first year of medical school. And you, for the first time, get a chance to have a near-death experience. And these longitudinal and peer mentoring learning communities really help the students know that there's a future and there's light at the end of the tunnel. They also understand that there's also wellness programs. They understand how you deal with early failure, because some of these med students have never failed anything until they come to our medical school. And that's stressful. But it provides a sense of community. So the learning communities, there are 11 of them. They will have names from some of our senior academic learnings, like the Kirkland Learning Community. I won't go through all the names, but there are a number of them that are named after our academic leaders. This just shows some pictures of their interactions, and nearly probably half of the medical schools in the country now have learning communities. Some of them call them colleges. We call ours learning communities, but it provides a holistic environment. The other aspect we've added is service learning. And just so you can understand, service learning is really a method of teaching. But it really is where most of our students want to be. They want to be in a relevant manner to affect their community. And when I was a student, I lived in East Baltimore, and basically I did a lot to avoid my community because it wasn't a part of the culture. But as in that school and in ours, we want our students to have an impact in their community at every level of their training. So this service learning process gives them a chance to meaningfully engage in the community based on what they know, critical thinking from their experience, but also engage them in a manner that's going to be relevant not only for now, but for their future. Aaron Snyder led this review of this task force and put forward a recommendation that we would specifically add this, and we will be adding this to our curriculum. In addition to the service in the community, Dr. Evans brought to my attention a unique opportunity, not only for the School of Medicine, but for all of the allied, the professional schools, is developing a program called an Albert Schweitzer Fellowship. And it's a chance to really add a level of sophistication to service learning. And these fellows then get grants and awards to really do formal projects in the community. It has tremendous impact on who they are as individuals in their careers. It's not anything to pad your CV with, but it really is to help determine how you want to serve in the world as a physician, as a dentist, as a public health professional, or as a nursing professional. It certainly allows them to build resilience, it allows them to deal with disparities in our region, and it creates competence certainly around the areas of social determinants of health. And hopefully in the next year or so, as Hughes lays the groundwork, we'll be rolling out the Albert Schweitzer Fellowship as a part of our. There are 13 chapters in the country. We hopefully will be the 14th. So our regional campuses are a huge part of who we are. Nearly 50% of our students after their second year are trained outside of Birmingham. They'll train in Huntsville, they'll train in Montgomery, and they'll get their training in Tuscaloosa. And our data would say that they are just as well trained there as they are here. They perform well on their tests to match in competitive programs, and we have committed leaders to those sites. And we become an integral part of impacting their community. I was at a retreat at the Baptist Health Center in Montgomery, and them talk about the value of what this school will be and the residencies mean for their community is immense. And so we are a vested part of these communities to make sure we can provide physicians for those areas, but also to help them strengthen our school. The Tuscaloosa campus is quite innovative. I had a chance to visit it on a number of occasions as Rick Streifer has led their strategic. And one of the things that come out of that is the development of this longitudinal. This curriculum, rather than to have the students do the block formation through multiple areas, allows them to engage with a highly selected clinician who takes them through the care of a patient across multiple diseases and multiple specialties. So it gives them that longitudinal experience. It's been done very nicely at Harvard. It's been done nicely at a number of schools. That competent physician who's geared toward often primary care, but really geared toward the mature engagement of a patient. The Montgomery campus, as I mentioned, it's just started. Hopefully we'll build up to 20 students as WIC seeks to recruit the first 5 cohort. I had a chance to go to the opening of the campus. There's a separate building there. Baptist Montgomery South, which is a 500-bed hospital, a part of our health system, could not be more excited to have students to be a part of their. We think this is going to be the final edition of expanding our campus, but really to be a great addition to the other 2 campuses that we've had. The final campus I want to mention is Huntsville. And the Huntsville campus, I don't have one of the slides. Huntsville campus, I had a chance to visit, and they celebrated their 40th year anniversary. And it's been a seminal part of growing the medical community at Huntsville. Into the Huntsville Hospital. I had a chance in 1986. The only rotation outside of Johns Hopkins was in Huntsville, Alabama at the UAB School of Medicine program. That was really my first chance to come back in the state of Alabama to work in the healthcare environment. It was important also because that's where I met my wife. So it was good and among the reasons. The other aspect of our med school program has been the launching of our interprofessional and simulation office. You heard me mention Bob earlier, but Bob's passion still continues to lead in our school. Interprofessional education is going to be, I hate to say the wave of the future, but it's going to be the essential characteristics of a physician who's going to serve in a credible way in the future. Knowing how to interact with other health professionals and to maximize and leverage that is going to be key. We're one of the few schools in the country, arguably the only school in the country, where we have an interprofessional simulation module in every aspect of our early clerkships. Part to Hughes's efforts with Craig and with Laura, with Bob, and Marjorie White to implement that as a part of our training program. And we're excited about where that's going and what it means for our students. In addition, our simulation office has really started off with a bang. You've heard a lot about the Ebola program. Lauren Rue and Marjorie Lee have done a phenomenal job using simulation to impact and prepare us to be prepared for that event if it were to occur at UAB and to have a manner to deal with it. It also has been an impactful way, as you heard, in our curriculum for skill centers, for our students, but also for our residency training program, and it's broadly impacted all of our other UAB health schools. You've seen the other accomplishments, but it's going to continually have a large impact on our environment. Marjorie has, I hate to say that she has a lot of energy, she has a ton of energy, and she seems to be tireless, but she's done a great job with this. So research. When I came, one of the people who I met early on in the interview process was Dick. And I knew that Dick would need to be in a for us to go forward. He's been for us together as we have and continually improving all of the operations that serve you, but also growing our overall research program. And I appreciate his support that he's provided. The other thing that we faced when I came was this sort of staircase piano keyboard, if you would. And it highlighted that we had the challenge, like many schools have had, of growing a research enterprise in a difficult environment. But it was one that I wasn't the only one to recognize, but Ray and Anupam and even recognized that we needed to change this profile and grow it. Said that realistically, this was a trajectory that we needed to think about in real-term numbers. We were at 134 million or 133 million, if you would, and where I thought we needed to go was really into the top 20, which would put us in the top 10 of all public-funded schools. I don't we can't go into the top 10, but realistically, that's where I knew we needed to aim for and where we could achieve. We needed to use all these parameters to get there. However, as I also showed, we'd be doing this in a very difficult time. You can see that it doubled back there, back from the 1980s, 1990s, if you would, to 2000s, in the mid-2000s. That's where was the opportune time to grow. We didn't grow during that time. And so we can't go back and change that, but we're trying to grow when the NIH budget is flat. It's 30.1 in 2014, it's 30.7, and if you look at dollars, it's significantly less than it was in the past. So when it means we do grow, our faculty, our new leaders, our new investigators have to actually outcompete our counterparts. We have to take grants away. We have to bring who may have grants. But it's something that I think we've always been up to the challenge to do. It also means that in its current, this number in 2012, unfortunately, is even a little worse today for certain study sections, that it's less than 10% of grants get funded. So it's a difficult environment to get that seminal R award. because there are so few dollars and there are so many people competing. And often the grants are made smaller in order to give more to people, but in reality, we've chosen a very difficult time to grow. But grow we have. We set out goals to aim toward new applications. And those goals, if you certainly don't launch any ships in the sea, you'll never have any come into harbor. Last year, that is 2013, we had 1,600 applications. And this year, we had over 1,700 applications. We looked at our benchmark goals. Our desire was to sort of do what we did last year, and our faculty did that. That's in an environment where many times you get told no. Our faculty didn't take no for an answer, and nearly 1,735 applications. Those grants are made up by these type of awards. Nearly 50% of our grant awards are R awards. Now what you need to take note of, the other 50% is almost made up of collaborative, team-based awards. That's U's and P's strength. That's where we actually win. We have a room to grow in T's and K's for that pipeline development, but we excel in P's and U's, and that's an opportunity for us to continually grow. So what happened? So we've this year an additional $23 million, and that's a growth for the first time in 12 years from 31 to 26. And that's a significant jump. I can't tell you that we'll repeat that in any near time in the future, but we'll certainly go up 5 points. So no school grew that far in 1 year. And that growth was from $133 million to $156 million in NIH funding. That's a lot of money to take away from other schools. The money hadn't grown, we just took a bigger part of the pie. We have some opportunities, though, to grow awards. We certainly can increase our T awards, and we've started a process to incentivize that. We've added $30,000 for the PI who gets a funded T award, because there's really no support for the PI in the T awards. We have room to grow in the K awards, and you can see we actually outcompete those schools in the top 10 with P's and U awards. And we have opportunity to grow for our R awards as well. When you look at what percentages of what we've done in a 1 year and a 5 year, there are a number of things you can see that we have some areas to improve in. We obviously can improve our performance in the R awards. That's a highly world. We've been flat in our P50s and P60s. We've really knocked it out of the park on the U awards, almost a 35% increase. And the risk of those U awards is they're really big, but not all of them can be renewed. Some of them are one time. But those that are, we've done extremely well. And then we can't forget that we have the DNA to do well for P50s. We have that ability to do it. We just need to make sure we grow in those areas. When you look at the number of faculty it takes to drive this success, we've talked about recruiting 8 to 10 new faculty over the next per year for the next 5 to 6 years. You see where our competitors lie. You see where we are. We've surpassed Chicago and Wisconsin this year, and you see that our southern peers, Emory and Vanderbilt, have significant numbers ahead of us in funded investigators. I think the sweet spot for us is probably around 300. That's where I'd like for us to be in funded PIs. I don't know that we need to be 480 and near 500 where Vanderbilt is. Emory is probably a size that we don't have to be, but well because of the size of the grants we get. But I do think we have room to grow. We certainly have space to grow, and that will be what our target will aim to do. So where are we now? We're 26. We're 31 last year. This, however, is like being on a down escalator. The moment you stop walking, the moment that you saw that little boy stop walking up that down escalator, he went backwards. That's clearly the same for us. We stop the funding, supporting, or growing, we will not continue to grow. The environment is not in our favor. It's a counter environment for growth. And yet we've grown in spite of that environment. So what are the areas that we're going to focus on? And the selection criteria for these areas was that they could not be, we asked them not to be disease focused. They had to be cross-cutting. They had to be focused with where the NIH was going. And they had to be areas where UAB could perform well in. Now, having something with their name around it, cancer, transplant, immunology, or whatever you might have it. But the reality is we ask these to cut across a number of themes in order for us to do that. And so they aren't really disease specific, but they allow almost all of our diseases to fit in them. And so when you see the RFAs come out, they will broadly ask for everything to be participating, not just cancer, not just transplantation, not just neurosciences. It will include all of these. And we believe if we can excel in these areas, we'll continue to grow. So as I mentioned, these were the criteria when we reached out to the faculty and surveys to do this. This just shows one of the areas, personalized medicine, that we want to execute on, that Nita has helped lead. The foundational pieces of that are the Hudson Alpha Center and UAB Hudson Alpha Center and UAB Informatics Center. We've talked about up that search for the leader, and you heard President Obama saying that he would go to Congress to take to the NIH a seminal and new request for personalized medicine funding, and we participate in that. So personalized medicine has grown here through a number of venues, and the partnerships that we've established are crucial for the future, and they demonstrate really all of them. One, Bruce Korf and Rick Myers have really done a great job together. They've helped build this center more than just on name and paper, but they've partnered, conversing almost weekly on next strategies. Rick and Hudson Alpha are really a well-recognized genomics center. Same thing with Bruce in genetics. He's really a thoughtful international leader known for neurofibromatosis, and they formed a new partnership. The chairs will be a huge part of this as we grow it, because that's where faculty are recruited. David Standard has been a great partner in doing this. He's loaned us Nita for a small cost and to help us do this, and she's done a great job from neurology, and he's provided the resources with us in partnership to recruit the first faculty to personalized medicine, Heidi Paomi. Heidi has done the seminal work, that's looked at the effect of caffeine in Parkinson's disease. Her team helped define the glutamate receptor that determined who was a responder and who was not a responder to caffeine, and she's been a part of launching 2 huge clinical trials in Germany and Canada looking how caffeine may affect Parkinson's disease. And she's coming from upstate New York at the Wartman Institute, starting in February, really as our first personalized medicine hire. And it was unique in her coming. She insisted that she was coming largely because of UAB and Hudson Alpha. They were both attractive to recruit her out of upstate New York. Jim Cimino. And Jim, as you've heard me talk about him, but informatics is the critical piece to making personalized medicine work. Rick and I talked for about 30 minutes last night, and they were talking about their new purchasing of the Illumina platform, which is a sequencing machine. Their platform costs $1,000. But what it allows them to do is to do deep sequencing, whole sequencing for about $1,500. But as he reminded me, and as I realized, the vast majority of work in genomics is interpreting the data and putting it in a relevant format. In doing so, Jim brings the informatics piece to make that happen. And Seth has been a great partner, along with, you heard me mention him regarding our recruitment of Ravi and Smita. He's also been a great partner in helping get Jim here as he sits in the Department of Medicine. But informatics will be the driver, and data management will affect almost every grant we put in. Finally, these areas of basic science discovery, we've already are excelling in a number of them. So those other core areas were fundamentals of basic science discovery, infection, immunology, and inflammation, and then the final was health outcomes and population health. And we've already begun to achieve in those as demonstrated by these papers. Mike Miller, who Tika is quite proud of, had a great paper in Science. And Mike now also is a finalist for Howard Hughes Medical Fellowship recognition. They started with over 300 candidates. He's one of the semifinalists for this. His paper in Science really shows how his work, particularly looking at modulation clues for sperm motility in worms, really was a great discovery recognized in Science. And then David Sweat's work in memory. He was able to show that epigenetics has a huge impact in consolidation of memory, both recent and remote memory, and that was published in Nature. So already in Fundamentals of Science, and you could list 20 to 30 papers that were high impact papers that would go on of how we've achieved in this area from many of our researchers. As it relates to immunology and infection, Bob Kimberly and Jeff Edberg nicely showed how this particular receptor on B cells can be targeted to affect regulation of hormonal immune responses. And that opens up the door of how you may treat or affect autoimmune or immune diseases. And then finally, Paul Muntner, who has joint appointments in public health and in the School of Medicine with Monica Safford, had a great paper in JAMA. Really wanted to validate an algorithm that made a decision of when you started on statins. And their work really confirmed that the algorithm works, and it had the right ability to predict who needed it and what the impact would be. So already we have great potential and have moved forward, and we will go to improve even these efforts as we look at these other three core areas. The other thing we realize is that although our faculty do well, many of them have gray hair. We need to create a pipeline, and we're not against people with gray hair. The reality is we have to prepare people to come up through our pipeline. So this idea in this program in NUPM to establish a way that we could recognize young investigators who had achieved at a high level and who we wanted to promote over the next 4 or 5 years was through this mechanism called the Pittman Scholars. We will choose anywhere from 3 to 5 or 2 to 5 each year. We will recognize them through this annual amount of dollars, which is about an annual of $250,000 endowment. But it's discretionary money. They can do anything they want with. We had 11 nominated, and we're selected with 5 were selected and have just been notified. And they were outstanding. I heard the committee who looked at them raving what potential these individuals had. Many have just gotten their new R01. As you can recognize, they're from a broad selection of our departments. But these are the future of UAB, and we will grow this pool of individuals as the chairs nominate them and they get selected. So clinical care. So the research arm, we've made great strides in, but in the previous talks I've shown that those departments that are tremendously recognized as the top U.S. News and World clinical institutions are also the top institutions. They go hand in hand. And usually the great clinical institutions have great research programs. So I don't separate the two. I realize innovation can't be isolated. And we want that to be not only in our labs, but we want it also in every aspect of our clinical care. And I say I really enjoyed and still enjoy today working with Will and Jim. I was down in Montgomery with Will, looking how the Baptist system may be in a more integrated role with our health system. And Jim's done a phenomenal job as president of the HSF in his role as well. So I'm excited and pleased about what our future holds, because I think, and I'm certain of, as I travel around the country, our health system is a national leader. How we practice and the way we want to grow is a national standard. Our practice plan is one of the best places in the country for faculty to work in. So we have great opportunity and a lot to be proud of. The health system team, Will leads it, and he has a great group. Reed Jones, who I've known since the first day he gave me my blue book in surgery when I was hired, has moved up the ranks and is serving in a unique role as our COO and been a critical arm of Will's strength for growing our health system. But you see Don, who I mentioned, Lauren Rue, the new addition as Chief Medical Officer, you hear me talk about later on, has done a tremendous job in transforming our culture of quality. Don and David also are critical for our growth and engagement to the hospital. Couldn't do what we do in the School of Medicine without the partnership of and his team. But Mary Beth and Terry and Joan are always available to help us grow in any way we can, not only contributing financially, but also supporting our training programs, but faculty at every level. And then the Health Services Foundation. It's been a critical part of UAB's history and legacy. And Jim, as you heard me say, has served as president. Patty Pritchett, she's been great to work with, and she knows our institution throughout every level. She's, as we've gone through funds flow, and you see Mike and Marty and Charles are key to our success of really future. So what is UAB Medicine? What does the hospital and the Kirkland Clinic look like? It's one of the biggest in the country, arguably the 3rd largest public academic health center in the country. So nearly 49,000 discharges, well over 2,000 beds, 1.2 million visits a year, 1,000 patients on an census. There are very few academic medical centers that reach that profile. The ones that do are indigent care, and Kirkland has that number, and maybe Grady does. but none of them are really tertiary referral centers. The category maybe fits Penn and Hopkins, but not many more of that size and magnitude. What are the challenges going forward for the health system and the practice plan? Well, the RCO development, and you'll hear me speak briefly about that in the future. Funds flow, which has been a great advent for our departments in alignment with the hospital, continually has to evolve, reaches all its full potential. But it's where most institutions weigh our hospital and the system partner with a financial incentive to grow, access, quality scores, readmissions, reduce mortalities, and move from volume to value. And that's like, we don't get paid anymore for how much we do, we get paid more often for how well we do it. And then foundations of the future, heard of that? As we reached out to start this, what you'll hear me speak about, this academic enrichment fund, our health system, really under Will's leadership, said we need to actually look at how we cut waste. Because $120 million new dollars a year to support our research enterprise, to support the capital we need in our hospital, and to continually be a competitive recruiter of physicians. Most institutions are doing it across the country. Hopkins is doing it, Penn has done it, Vanderbilt's done it. We've done it in a unique way. We haven't lost many jobs doing it. Many places have lost positions. We've done it in a way that I think allows efficiency, but also hopefully to find the new dollars we need. This slide simply shows what the trajectory of what we have to aim for. This triple aim. Everything we do, we have to do. Everything we do, we have to make sure the patient has a great experience while we do it. And everything we do in healthcare now clinically has to have the largest in the country. And it's simply taking someone who may be a donor, who has a relative who wants a kidney but has a mismatch and no longer is kept from donating that kidney. Now through informatics and computer, our team has been able to find almost 34 matches, which is the largest chain in the country, of taking someone who wants to donate a kidney and have their loved one get a kidney that's matched and have that kidney that they give go to someone who matches as well. This giving tree is made up of these individuals, and these are all the faculty who participate, both nephrologists and surgeons. Jamie Locke has been the seminal driver of this, but all of these individuals have played a key role in the success in bringing prominence to UAB on Nightline, as well as a number of national publications. UAB Medicine has been launched, and that's been a great advent in our community to treat these common things through emails and a virtual encounter. It had almost over 100,000 site visits, 2,000 total encounters. Most importantly, these areas, you get your prescription, you get your cold diagnosed. 40% of the e-patients medicines have been new to the user, which shows the power that it will have to bring new patients in. Our other is Children's of Alabama, and Mitch lives in this world daily, but Children's is a robust center, really arguably one of the larger children's hospitals, certainly in the top 5, but you can see the volume of care they provide and the essential nature of they provide for our state for taking care of children. We, together with them, have one of the largest NICUs in the country. It's completely in the buildings that are connecting the two. It provides complex care for kids in the early stages of life with all of these areas that you see. It's led by Wally Carlo, and it's one of the few and maybe the only NICU in the country that participates in 3 clinical trials research networks, recognizing not only the outstanding care provided, but also the outstanding academic leadership. Children's also has started one of the early Alabama's only pediatric dialysis center that's led to the development of really a robust renal transplant program, doing nearly 30 cases a year, but well over 500 since their inception, and recognized as being one of the best transplant outcome programs in the country for kidneys. Those are the other things you've heard Will talk about that he's betting a lot on. But because UAB has Viva as its insurance arm, getting engaged with managed care of Medicaid populations means a slightly different thing for us than many other institutions. And so we'll be playing in regions B, regions D, and regions E. And the opportunity with us was with Viva is not only to manage the lives from caring for them in population health with our physicians, but also to manage the lives of their contracts. And that means often Viva adding anywhere from 300 to 600 new jobs in this area. It also means new revenue, because the charges for managing those contracts are anywhere from 3 to 5% or higher. The revenue changes can be as high from Viva going to a place that deals with 500 or 600 million to being over $1 billion of managed care lives. So it's a great opportunity. We don't know if they're but they're moving ahead, and hopefully the governor will allow them to move forward. So what happens as we bring this to close in the future? AMC 21 is what we've reloaded. It will cut across all of our missions. We'll seek to deal with engagement and satisfaction, quality finance, and advancement of knowledge. We've also established for engagement a board of visitors. Now, some of these individuals you may recognize, but they are some of the leading CEOs in the country. Most of them are not from Alabama, and I wanted this board to have a national presence because that's what our school wants to have. We're not just a local school, so this board is just not a local board. There are clearly outstanding local leaders on this board. But Ted Love, who's from Huntsville, Alabama, is the CEO of Global Blood Therapeutics in San Francisco, is the co-chair with Gail Castle, who's, as you know, the former chair of Micro and a former senior vice president of Eli Lilly. They both have done a remarkable job bringing this board together. They'll come back in March, but they come back to review our progress. They come back to contribute intellectually, financially, but also come back to contribute to our success. We also, for quality, we have to grow in our diversity. Mona leads that with Sam and Carlton, who are going to drive that from the point of GME as well as UME. There are a number of programs that they're engaged in. Mona started working with our departments for strategic plans. There's a Woman in Medicine program. As you heard me mention, she brought Mark Neve here, and we'll have a Diversity Visiting Scholars program as well. These are some of our statistics. I would bring your attention to the 7.7 and the 8.2%. Those do not reflect our world at all. Particularly as it relates to our students, it looks nothing like the diversity of Alabama or our country. These improve at every level. And the office will use this multiple pipeline programs and reaching out to our community as well as engaging our faculty and departments. Facilities will have to improve. We have a number of facilities that need upgrades, and we'll look to consider a bond issue in the upcoming years to actually make the substantial upgrades to support the recruits that we have. And you heard me mention Loring's name. Our future resides in making sure we have measurable improvements in the quality care that we patients, and Loring's done that by leading the team to help decrease our mortality ratio. We're also participating with the UAC and looking at our quality and accountability scorecard. We'll be able to provide data in a more granular way to our team leaders as we move forward to look at effectiveness, safety, and equity of care. This card just shows where we've gone under their leadership. We were as high as 101 or 103 in our quality index and our accountability scores for UHC hospitals. And we've made a tremendous leap to be almost in the top to make that happen. We'll continually grow that, but quality in our patient care is observed, not just on our opinion as physicians. Ben Taylor has led this with Loring of this engagement of Emmy. Emmy is an interactive post-discharge phone call multimedia program that will call a patient and remind him of all the things that were put on his discharge. And it's really helped us to move from the ICU, that is the intensive care unit, to the integrative care unit to help patients be cared for outside of the patient, which is so-called the circle of care. And then the other part of this is our clinical effectiveness program that's looking at how we actually increase quality, reduce cost. And that's already reduced savings of $9 million in our hospital. This shows the sepsis score. If we implemented our sepsis care program, and it's a way that we can identify patients who are going into sepsis, that early determination, as you can see, helps us understand how we can reduce our ratio of attention to patients who are becoming acutely ill. The sepsis project, I've actually had the experience on a patient of mine last week. And the patient didn't get deathly ill, but being aware of the signs and of the parameters that are automatically notified in a nurse, it allowed us to intervene to do a couple things. One, to make sure the length of stay was not prolonged. Two, to make sure there wasn't an extensive complication. And three, to have that she was getting the best care. So this is making an impact on our floors already for taking care of patients. And this further outlines the sepsis care project. The sepsis score is that score that's given by a nurse automatically in the computer when the heart rate gets too high, the temperature rises, or the respiratory rate drops. It automatically calls for a nurse and notifies the team. Finally, as we look at our finances, you can see where our finances come from, largely made up of grants. Like most state schools, we are state assisted. Although we're seen as a state school, about 14% of our funding comes from the state, and we're grateful for every dollar, but these are where our dollars come from that make up our budget. These are where our dollars go, largely to our departments and centers. You can see that a small part, 1%, is for administration, the rest towards space and grants and investments. Final slides are about the campaign for UAB, and Shirley and her team have done a phenomenal job. We are ahead of our halfway point, over $500 million. The School of Medicine, led by Virginia's efforts, has really led the way for the entire university, nearly $360 million. So almost 2/3 of that funding's come to the school, 66%. And you can see the gifts that we have that are part of that effort. These are some of the most recent development gifts, and you heard me mention this $7 million new gift, but it really expresses the community's interest in UAB, willing to step up and give dollars toward what they believe can be excellence. This is also just demonstrating my chance to drive around the state. I've gone to some towns I hadn't been to in a long time: Dothan, Anniston, Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, Montgomery. We've made these trips. They've been fun to have people connect with the school and to get a chance to meet them. You heard me mention the Academic Enrichment Fund, and this has been the work that our clinical leaders came together that said we needed to do. The goal of this fund is $55 million. That includes dollars to reinvest in departments, but most important, it's the first time that UAB has had dedicated dollars to put into our research program. As so goes this fund, as so goes our research. If this fund gets fully funded, our research will grow to the next level. It will be the key to that. So you watch that, that's our ability to make this happen, but it can't occur if every other aspect of our institution thrive. Our health system has to thrive. Viva has to thrive. Our departments have to thrive. The HSF have to thrive. But in doing so, this also has to as well. These slides simply reminds our research team and our clinical leaders that all of those broad themes fit into those 5 core areas. And we heard you when we had our retreats that you'll hear from the upcoming year. These will be the ways that we'll be engaging you to grow our research programs. Incentives for that second R01, incentives for K&T awards. You've already seen from TICA this submitting incentives for submitting multi-PI awards. We've already invested almost $1 million new in the graduate school. You'll hear about the Innovator Awards. We'll help try to build infrastructure to our best of our abilities. And these areas of recruitment you've heard me mention earlier. The other area you've heard about that I'll end on is global health. You've heard me mention Ruben's effort in this. In South Africa, we have some critical decisions with the Department of Medicine and Pediatrics to talk about in Zambia. We are engaged in the Middle East with programs for also education and development and hospital development. We're engaged in Peru in the Gorgas Institute. So we have multiple footprints that we want to actually execute on. So our objectives as I close for 2015, we have to continually sustain all of our academic programs. Our clinical volumes are up. Are up, our visits are up, we have to improve our access, we have to improve we have to be more, we have to be sustained physical managers, best physical managers of our dollars, and we have to continue to invest in our research program. And we have to strategically communicate what we're doing and engage you as faculty on a regular basis. So this last slide is the reason, so some of you have seen me give this, is the reason that I get up to do my job every day, and hopefully is the reason you do yours. The reason that UAB matters to the state of Alabama and beyond are these fundamental 4 areas. One, each of you here in some way has a chance to be a leader, and the leader is never defined by his title. And you can quickly recognize leaders, but it's not a title-driven thing. It's how well you're willing to carry areas of excellence, collaboration, in order for it to benefit somebody. And in this case, what we do is that we lead in a collaborative manner to benefit our patients. We're an institution that's compelled by discovery. That's what separates our peers in the Southeast and our hospitals in Alabama. We're driven to understand human biology, and we want to see how we can apply that to improve the health of our citizens of this state and this country. Thirdly, we have a social responsibility. That's to impact the world around us. To not just impact UAB, but wherever we are, we want to make a difference. Fundamentally, that means that we want to have access for care for all people in this state. And thirdly, and fourthly, we certainly educate, and we commit to educate, meeting the local, regional, and global needs for healthcare professionals and research through what we do here at UAB. Now, the snapshot you saw talked about the number of residents, appointments. We have 1,000 people in the hospital. But the snapshot also includes this. Miracles occur every day. Patients tell me how excited they are and how thankful they are they had care at UAB. I still am involved in patient care, but there's nothing like hearing a patient becomes routine to you, a miracle to them. So miracle occur every day for our patients through the execution of great. It also occurs every time there's a new discovery in our labs. And it also occurs every time a trainee has a new insight. Those are the miracles that occur in every snapshot we have. The question I have to you is, how will you contribute to the miracles at UAB that affect the lives of whom we serve in 2015? And you all have a role to contribute in some way, even if it's facilitating any of those areas. And that's where we can change the world we live in and make a difference. With that, I'll stop. If there are any questions. Yes, Steve.
So one of the keys to executing this really lacked at UAB, and I know several people have sort of reviewed this, and this is what I call the computational superhighway. It's like the interstate system changed America when it was built. One thing UAB is really, really low on is our overall capacity, our ability to communicate, and ability to crunch numbers. And that's going to be so important when you talk about personalized medicine and all the other aspects of this. So where's that investment going to come from? In the past, my understanding, I am on the computational committee, it's self-funded.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can continue to do funding. There has to be an institutional commitment that's far above anything. I talked with Dick Marquez in the past about this, and I've been here a long time, and I've seen it as an abject failure.
Yeah, so I talked with you and Alexander yesterday, who's on leading the task force that Ray charged looking at our computational capacity. And we agreed, number one, we are not at the level we need to be. And we haven't even begun to talk about the computational needs we'll need for the future. And as we talk about informatics and we talk about our partnership for genomic science, we haven't even talked about the capacity to store data. And so we have to invest in that. That's going to be a need to expand our computing capacity. That is on the radar of the institution, but it will be something that we have to fund at a higher level to make sure it happens. I think it's going to probably also take some partnerships. Execution of what we can do with Hudson Alpha is an example of partnerships. It still has to be, we still have to make sure we achieve what we desire that partnership to be. But if we either rebuild and recapitulate what they have, that's a $100 million investment. And it's one that we don't need to do if the be executed on a way through a collaboration that benefits both places. So there might be a collaboration that we may end up to get the computing capacity we want, but we're certainly going to need to expand it.
I'm curious to know, I really appreciate all the efforts that you talked to role and social responsibility. I was wondering how you think we do as an institution to balance sort of our looking into new and innovative and very advanced technologies compared to just caring for our general population. Like you said, there's big differences between our makeup and the makeup of our community. So I'm just curious to know how you think we do and where we're going with that.
So I want to make sure I understand your question. Our ability to roll out technology to our community or to use technology to take care of our patients?
Our ability to care for the general needs of the population, the diverse population of Birmingham.
Yeah, so I think that, has had a long history of providing the best care in the world, independent of what people could afford. So 2 examples, obviously as a surgeon I relate to that world. As a med student in Baltimore, we were sending our babies to Birmingham, Alabama for their surgery, their heart surgery. As a faculty member traveling to Africa, I could proudly say that UAB had done more transplants on African Americans than any institution in the world. And that's true today. I think the unique contribution we have to society is with our population, as diverse as it is, we can demonstrate that we can give that care independent of ethnicity and socioeconomic status to make sure their care is second to none. And that's going to be very important for personalized medicine. Personalized medicine has the very ability to segregate our society on the have and have-nots. And our ability to make sure that is rolled out to everybody in our state is an example for the country and the world if we can do that. So there are a couple of questions, not that you confuse or believe that I tweet or manage a Twitter account. I even struggle with the pronunciation of the word. A question from our Twitter feed says, given the remarkable NIH funding at UAB, why do few UAB medical grads enter academia? What do we need to do about that? Are you a med student? Resident? Can you help answer that? So why? Why so few go into academic medicine?
Well, I would imagine that finances play at least a small part. I would imagine that finances probably play a big part.
Soon in the future, the difference between an academic salary and a private salary will gradually go away. And that won't be a difference. But I think this is a fundamental issue. And we've looked at creating an academic physician office to begin. Bill Andrews and Kevin Roth and Mitch Cohen and some of the other department chairs that we do need to begin a pipeline both in residency and in our medical school. And we've talked about also in our medical school creating potentially a master's in science that doesn't get you a PhD but does get you 2 years in a lab to truly get you passionate about doing research as a part of your career. I think it's a huge that we don't have a greater percentage of our students and a greater percentage of our residents in the academic arena. Because it used to be salary differential, but UAB pays fairly well. In fact, I would argue that there aren't those differentials in certain specialties as they are. There are in some, but in more and more there will be pretty much a flat ground when it comes. It'll be what your passion is. I think we need to cultivate that. People get passionate about what they're exposed to and who they're around. Most of us don't knowing what we wanted to be in the world, but we got turned on by people around us about what they do. Do a better job. I'm going to skip one. Someone said, will we receive raises this year? We'll just skip over that one. Administrative leadership is acutely aware that we haven't had raises in a couple of years. So I don't know the answer to this, but it's not off the radar screen. It is on everybody's mind. Another Twitter response, the suite 100 NIH funded investigators, how many do we have now? They left before they saw that slide. We have 258. We need 42 more. If the future of physician reimbursement is based on the quality of care delivered, why are our staffing needs determined by Navigant and our reimbursements using funds flow based on an RVU model? That's a good one. That's somebody too grossly involved in the process. So I would say the following is this, is that the quality, the volume to value switch is not all or nothing. A large part of how we're going to get paid for several years is still going to be fee for service. But there will be a growing part of how we get paid based on quality and process improvement. And we will see either additions of small dollars or decrement of dollars based on how well we do. But they're small compared to our overall budget. They will grow over time. President Obama has just pushed HHS and CMS to start moving to a pay-for-performance model. So as CMS goes to a complete pay-for-performance model, we will go with it. But right now, we still get paid on a volume basis. So to switch that overnight would be dangerous. And I saw a healthcare corporation switch quickly to a value-based model. And in that value-based model, they dropped their margin from 10% to 0.1%. And we don't want to do that. Nothing grows when our hospital doesn't make money. So the answer to that. I think that's all I have by Twitter. You have any more questions? All right, thank you very much.